The Blind Tony Story, Book 2, Chapter 2. Even though we left the hustle and bustle of Philadelphia for the peace and serenity of the Garden State, much of our lives still revolved around the Keystone State, especially in a place called Langhorne, Pennsylvania. That's where Dad was the pastor of a small Baptist church, about an hour and a half away from Lawnside. Dad also worked there during the week as a chauffeur/groundskeeper. As I said earlier, family was very important in our lives. Dad's brother, Uncle Matthew, lived about a block away from the church, and a lot of our time in Langhorne was spent at his house. Uncle Matthew looked a lot like Dad, but they were worlds apart in terms of lifestyle. Uncle Matthew was a quick-tempered, outspoken, very opinionated individual. He drove dump trucks and operated heavy equipment. He drank, cursed, and loved to hunt and fish. He ran his house with an iron fist, and he brandished a rawhide bullwhip to enforce the discipline. I never actually saw him hit anybody with it, but his bark was so convincing that it really wasn't necessary to have any teeth for a bite. He also did most of his hunting and fishing with a bow and arrow, which was also highly unusual. And even so, he was very successful at it. Uncle Matthew was also one of the chief cornerstones of Dad's church. He was the head deacon, the elder, the janitor, handyman, all around everything. I remember once he and Dad got into a heated argument because Dad didn't give Aunt Gladys, Uncle Matthew's wife, a certain position at the church that Uncle Matthew wanted her to have. But Dad didn't feel she was the best person for that particular job. God is no respecter of persons, and much to the chagrin of Uncle Matthew, neither was Dad. As stated earlier, Dad was the real McCoy, and he did not subscribe to any form of nepotism or any other forms of favoritism. Uncle Matthew stayed mad with Dad for quite a long time, but time has a way of healing all wounds, especially among family members. Aunt Gladys was a beautiful black woman who had a healing spirit and an angelic voice. She also had a Mona Lisa-type smile. She was the head of the church choir, and I loved to hear her sing. It was pure refreshment to the weary spirit, even at a very young age. I remember playing hide and seek in their backyard once and being repeatedly stung all over my face and neck by wasps. And the touch of her hands, coupled with the sound of her voice set against a backdrop of her beautiful smile, had a miraculous healing effect on me. All the pain was instantly gone, and I was magically transported to a place that truly transcended the physical realm. She had the gift of a gentle, quiet, yet healing spirit, and I will always remember the warmth of her embrace, as well as the delicious taste of her sweet potato pies. Now, their daughter, Faye, played the piano for the church, and she became my first musical icon. She possessed a sense of rhythm that made me want to bob my head and tap my feet. Her playing was spirited, harmonic, melodious, and inspirational. She and Pat were around the same age, and they have remained close all their lives. Aunt Gladys' mother, Mrs. Lackey, also lived with them. She too had dark skin and was very, very beautiful. She never seemed to age. She reminded me a lot of Great-Grandma Hathaway. Dad and Uncle Matthew dated Mom and Aunt Gladys simultaneously in Atlantic City, New Jersey, where they all had gravitated to in an effort to find work. Lots of young black people came from the South seeking employment in Atlantic City, New Jersey, which was a hotbed for seasonal tourist activity. Hotel work was plentiful, and there was an abundance of rich white people who always needed housekeepers, maids, chauffeurs, handymen, and other menial personnel. Anyway, Mom, Dad, Uncle Matthew, and Aunt Gladys all met on the boardwalk in Atlantic City. They attended the same church together, and eventually they all got married. The four of them have always been close. Also, I had two cousins who lived there named Chester and Momo, and they became my new heroes. They taught me how to smoke cigarettes and how to sneak and drink alcohol without getting caught. They also taught me how to skim change from the money we were given to put in the collection plate at church in order to have money after church for cookies and bubble gum. We all sat together in the church, and we all got saved together, supposedly, by joining the church and getting baptized. We all did it together. That was what it was expected of us, and everybody was proud of us when we did it, including ourselves. We even got more money for cookies and bubble gum. Our weekly excursions to Langhorne were all-day affairs that afforded us all the opportunity to share together as a family and at the same time to escape from one another. Mom and Dad were still very much in love, and they were in their own little private world. Mary and Pat also had their own little private worlds. And me, like the busy bee nomad I was, floated in and out of everybody else's world at will. Sometimes welcome and sometimes not. We spent a lot of time in the car together on the road. And we would usually stop on the way home for French fries and a milkshake at McDonald's. So I always look forward to Sunday evenings, if for nothing else, than for the trip to McDonald's. Sometimes Dad would take me to work with him during the week when I wasn't in school. He worked for a rich white family in Langhorne that had a beautiful mansion in the woods that appeared to my childlike eyes like a medieval castle. They had this long driveway surrounded by shade trees on both sides that formed a tunnel with arches. They had horses in a stable. Slowly but surely, our relationship improved. Dad was still one of my heroes. But because of me no longer being innocent, there were always secrets which I couldn't share with him, which created a gulf which couldn't be bridged, even though our encounters were close, and a deep bond of love for each other still existed. But I, like most of the people in Dad's life, had become a changeling. I was one way when Dad was present, and another way when he was gone. Just like his brothers, Grandpa, and most of the other people in his life. I didn't particularly like it being that way, but that's just the way it was.